Well, we are going to start this week as we do every week. We're going to say hello to all the ladies and gentlemen joining us at our different campuses. And so hello to those of you in Kenosha. Hello to those of you in Racine. Hello to those of you online who are hanging out in your living room or some remote part of the world. And hello to the fine people at our Weekends on Wednesday service. They never disappoint me. I am curious as we get started here, how many of you remember the dress from several years ago that became a viral sensation and we had to figure out the colors? Do you remember this? All right, and the colors we were trying to decide between is it white and gold or is it black and blue? How many see white and gold? How many see black and blue? I swear people are making this up. I do not see black and blue, but apparently it has been decided and determined in reality it is black and blue. But honestly, I don't see that. That's not my perspective. And of course, perspective is a big deal. I remember being back in middle school or high school, and in one of the classes, we were going through our book, and we were introduced to this picture. And we were supposed to say what we see first. Do we see a duck first or a rabbit first? How many see a duck first? Oh, most of you. How many see a rabbit first? All right, a few of you. Depends on which way you're looking at it. All right, and then there was another picture we were introduced to. I want to know who sees a young lady first. Anybody see a young lady? Because that's what I see first. How about the elderly lady? How many of you say, I see one of the photos, but I don't see the other? Like, I just don't. Pastor Justin, no joke, he looked at this for a while the other day, and he says, I just can't see it, and I tried, and I finally gave up. Well, Pastor Justin and Tony this past week, both of them pastors, they got into a huge argument about who's the strongest. And I'm like, guys, this is ridiculous. In fact, I said, I want you to submit pictures, and we're going to have Weekends on Wednesday, and our different campuses decide. So you just decide who you think right there is the strongest. Well, perspective is a big deal. It impacts literally every area of our life. And of course, the perspective that we have in life is often shaped when we're kids. It's shaped by our parents. It's shaped by things we learn. It's shaped by church. It's shaped by experiences that we go through. It's shaped by assumptions we have. It's shaped by our age. It's shaped by our stage in life. It is shaped by so many things, but our perspective impacts how we look at life. Well, several weeks ago, we kicked off this series in which we're simply asking, why does it even matter? Like, why does following Jesus matter? And I know it sounds like a really arrogant question, but what is the difference between someone who follows Jesus and doesn't follow Jesus? And even though it might sound a little arrogant, it's not meant to. I want to deal with this tension that I'm guessing all of us have at some point or another, and that is, does following Jesus really make a difference? And so, if I were to look at the things that we've talked about over the last several weeks, and I were to boil it down to one word, I would say, yeah, it does make a difference, and it makes a difference specifically in our perspective, in how we see things and how we look at life. Followers of Jesus ought to have, I'm not saying we always do a great job at it, but followers of Jesus ought to have a different perspective than anyone else in the different areas of life and how we see life. So we kicked off the series by talking about this word hope, and we said because we believe in a living God, we ought to be the most hope-filled people on the planet. We haven't put our hope in the economy. We haven't put our hope in circumstances. We haven't put our hope in the different things that happen in life. We haven't put our hope in relationships, or at least we shouldn't be putting our hope there. Our hope is in a living God. And because our hope is in a living God, what we said is, man, we ought to see life differently. We ought to have this hope that there's more to life than we can see. We ought to have this hope that when things fall apart, God can bring beauty out of the ashes. He can take our biggest failures, our biggest regrets, and bring something meaningful out of them. We have hope that no matter how bad life may be today, it can be better tomorrow. And so we have hope. And then 2 weeks ago, we talked about how our perspective towards people who hurt us ought to be different because of Jesus. Because as followers of Jesus, we have this belief that we have been forgiven of all wrongdoing in our life. All right, everything in the past, present, and future, we have been completely forgiven by God. And so that ought to fuel us in forgiving others. Forgiven people forgive people. That doesn't mean we're going to trust fully. That doesn't mean we don't have to put up boundaries. It just means I'm chosen to not hurt you even though you've hurt me. And then last week we talked about how as followers of Jesus we have confidence that we are fully known by God and yet fully accepted by him. Like he sees everything about us. He sees the darkest parts of our life and he says, I fully accept you. And that gives us confidence where we stand with God. And since we have been fully accepted by God, it should be part of who we are that we fully accept others. Accepted people accept people. Now today, I want to talk about one more area as we wrap up our series that followers of Jesus ought to be different than everyone else. This is an area where we ought to have a different perspective than everyone else. It's in regards to the good things in our life. Here it is. Followers of Jesus view every good thing as a gift from God. So when we look around at the good things in our life, when we look around and see the blessings in our life, we don't chalk it up to chance. We don't say, well, that's kind of random. We don't say that's good luck. We give credit to God. We say, God has been good to me. God has blessed me. Right? And so sunshine is a gift from God. Relationships can be a gift from God. Opportunities are a gift from God. Taylor Swift is for sure a gift from God. Right? All of creation is a gift from God. Again, we don't see this as random. We see this as a gift. And in fact, James, who's one of the closest followers of Jesus in the first century, he wrote a manuscript, and in that manuscript, he made this observation. He said, whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God, our Father. So followers of Jesus believe every good thing is a gift. Life is a gift. The human body is a gift. Our legs are a gift. Our arms are a gift. I know mine are, right? Our facial features, that's a gift. Our brain is a gift. In fact, scientists estimate, as gross as this may look, right? Scientists say that if our brain was a digital video recorder, it could hold 3 million hours of TV shows. Right? That's like watching TV nonstop for 300 years straight. Some of you are close to this. All right? You're maxing out on your capacity. But that's the power of the human brain. Our nose is a gift. Our nose has the ability to distinguish between more than 10,000 different odors. Some studies say 50,000. One study I read said 1 billion different odors. And you're like, well, is that really a gift? Sure it is. Because if we couldn't distinguish between odors, we'd be eating some pretty gross stuff. So that is a gift, right? Our eyesight is a gift. We don't think about this, but if the human eye were like a digital camera, it would be 526 megapixels. If you can see, that is a gift. If you have the ability to taste, that's a gift. Right? God didn't have to give us that ability. He didn't have to make food so freaking enjoyable, but he gave it to us. Right? Nobody's ever watched a bunch of pigs wallowing around in the mud, getting all dirty, getting all filthy, and thought, you know what? You take the back end of one of those things and you cut it up and put it in the oven, that's going to be some good food. Right? Nobody's ever thought you cut out the belly of that and fry it. Woo! Beautiful. Yeah, to cure depression, that stuff's so stinking good. Right? But God thought of that. It's a gift. So our body is a gift. Our health is a gift. When we look around at the world, all the variety of things that we see, that's a gift. When God created flowers, right, he could have created one species of flower, but instead, he created 270,000 species that we know of. When he created birds, he could have created one species of bird, but he created almost 10,000 species of birds that we're aware of. So King David of Israel, he makes this observation about God. He says, oh Lord, what a variety of things you have made. In wisdom, you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Everywhere we look, we see the variety of God. And then you might remember back to astronomy class where we learned about the galaxy. And we learned that as far as we know, our galaxy has more than 150 billion stars. And I say as far as we know because the more powerful our telescopes get, the more we are convinced there's more than 150 billion. And then we learned that our galaxy is just one of more than 150 billion galaxies. Here's what King David writes about that. He says, the heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies display his craftsmanship. So everything in this world originated with God. It belongs to him. It is his from the beginning to the end, and yet he generously shares it with us. Every good thing in this life is from God. Our bodies, gifts from God. Nature is a gift from God. The abilities we have, the opportunities we have, all of it is a gift from God. Back in the camera. It's a gift. It is a gift. The car that you drove with today to get here, assuming you didn't ride a bike, the bike you rode here with, right? The horse and buggy maybe, I don't know. But whatever it took to get here, that's a gift. Your house is a gift from God. The money we have, it's a gift from God. Now, sometimes it's easy to forget that, understandably, right? Because I'm thinking, if it's a gift from God, then I have a disconnect. Because I'm the one who went to school to learn. I'm the one who sat through college classes. I'm the one paying off loans. I'm the one who has to get up early in the morning, set the alarm, and go to work. I'm the one who had to learn a skill set. I'm the one who had to carry the stress and carry the challenges and deal with all the people stuff at work. I'm the one who has to deal with that. And you want to tell me I've been responsible, that God ultimately is over all this? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. This is why early on in Israel's history, Moses warned the Jewish people. He said, hey, listen, there's going to be a day where you're going to have an abundance of resources. He said, right now you're not there, but there's going to be a day where you have an abundance. And he says, you're going to be tempted to take the credit. And so this is what he said to them. He said, you may say to yourself, I have achieved this wealth with my own strength and energy. Remember the Lord your God. He is the one who gives you power to be successful. He says, remember God. You didn't get to choose where you were born. You didn't choose your level of intelligence. You didn't choose your personality. You didn't choose your skill set. God chose that. And as followers of Jesus, because we see everything, or should see everything as a blessing in life, I wish what we had were a bunch of bows that we could just walk around with and just start placing on stuff, right? So if you can speak, that you put it on your vocal cord. And if you have eyes, that you could put it on your eye, right? And for those of you with hair, which a lot of you wouldn't have this gift. You wouldn't be able to do that, right? But you could put a bow on there. If a table, right? You could put it on a table. Again, you could go out to your car. And you could place it on your car. Even if you're still driving an AMC Gremlin, you could place it on your car. And you could say, God, this is a gift. Because I think sometimes we need these reminders. We need to recognize the gifts in life. Because here's the deal. We're surrounded by so many gifts that it just becomes white noise. Right? And the only time that I think that I truly am aware of how many gifts I have in life is when I bump into someone who doesn't have that gift. So if I am talking to someone who's incredibly unhealthy, maybe disease has overtaken their body, I realize my health is a gift. I've gone to developing countries a couple times in my life, and whenever I'm there, I realize, hey, having access to clean drinking water, that's a gift. I realize that to own a home and to have air conditioning and heat in my home, that's a gift. But sometimes what has to happen is we have to bump into someone who doesn't have the gift in order to recognize we have it. And in those moments, when we bump into someone who doesn't have it, sometimes we go to one of two extremes. Right, the one extreme is we feel really guilty and ashamed that we have this stuff. And it's like, I shouldn't have this stuff. And then the other extreme is we kind of feel proud. Like, well, if they had the gifts that I had, and if they had the knowledge I had, and they worked like I did, they would have all this stuff too. So it is what it is. Well, both of those responses are not just extreme. Both of those responses show a lack of true understanding that everything we have comes from God. King David of Israel wrote this. He said, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all its people belong to him. So the perspective that followers of Jesus have is that every gift in my life is from God. Every good thing in my life, it's a gift from God. He owns it. He's extremely generous with his resources, and he has shared it with me. While I'm on this planet, it's mine to enjoy. Now that leads me to another unique perspective that followers of Jesus have, and that is we genuinely believe to the core of our being that humans are made in the image of God. We believe humans are made in the image of God. Now, when something is made in someone's image, it means it is a reflection of that person. Right? When we see a statue, we know that's not the person, that is a replica or an image of that person. Right? So we see a statue, and often we recognize right away who it is. So who would this be? Elvis, the king, right? That's who that would be. All right, how about this next one? You'll recognize this pretty quickly. Yeah, Fonzie, right? For those of you born after 1990, you probably have no clue who this guy is, but that's fine. How about this one? Michael Jackson. Can you believe it? Rio de Janeiro, this is their statue of Michael Jackson. And so sometimes the image of a person is done really well, and other times it looks like they were intoxicated while they were putting it together. Well, followers of Jesus believe that every single person is made in the image of God, which means at some point we're supposed to reflect him. This is why we ought to be the most hope-filled people on the planet, because we reflect God. This is why we ought to be people known for our ability to forgive. This is why we ought to have a reputation of being the most accepting people on the planet. And it's also the reason that we ought to have a reputation for being the most generous people on planet Earth. Now, generosity can be defined in many different ways. So here's how we're going to define it today. Generosity is giving that stretches me. It's giving that's a little bit uncomfortable because it just doesn't come natural. So if I'm generous with my time, it means my calendar is so crazy booked, but I have created margin in order to do something for someone. If I'm generous with my talents, it means I'm uncomfortable using my talent in that way, but I know it's going to really help someone or bless someone, so I'm going to do it because I'm stretching myself in this area. If I am generous with my words of encouragement, it means just naturally I'm not this guy who goes around and just uses my words to build people up. That doesn't come natural, so I have to work at it. But when I do and I stretch myself in the area, it means I'm being generous. If I'm not stretching myself, it just means I'm doing it. Right? So if it just comes easy for me, then I'm doing it, but it doesn't necessarily reflect generosity. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but study after study after study has revealed that followers of Jesus are the most generous people on the planet. It's absolutely true. We have a reputation for being generous with our time, with our talents, and we also have a reputation of being generous with our money. Followers of Jesus have a reputation for giving away more money than any other group of people on the planet. We also have a reputation for giving away our time more than anyone else. And I promise you, especially if this is your first or second time here, I'm not saying this to be arrogant. This isn't an arrogant statement. This is a statement. And it shouldn't surprise anybody. We were created in the image of a generous God, and so it makes sense that we would be generous. But just like learning to be hopeful when the world around us sometimes feels like it's falling apart, just like that's a process to get there, and just like it would be a process to learn how to forgive someone who's hurt us deeply, and just like learning to accept people who I might not agree with them on something, or I might have a different worldview, that's a process to get there and trying to figure out what acceptance truly looks like. It is a process to learn generosity. Right? It's a process to learn. What does it look like to stretch myself when it comes to my schedule and when it comes to my time? What does it look like to stretch myself in the area of serving someone? What does it look like to stretch myself in areas of using my talents? But this isn't going to shock anybody. The area that it is the most challenging to learn how to be generous is in the area of money. And so that's what I want to take just the rest of our time to talk about today. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, or if maybe you're kind of new around here, it's easy to get cynical of this. I get it. Right? In fact, the reason I only talk about something like this twice a year is because I know the cynicism that surrounds it. But I feel like it would be disingenuous to say, hey, what's the difference between someone who follows Jesus and doesn't follow Jesus? It'd be disingenuous for me not to hit something so big like this. And so what I want you to do, if you don't follow Jesus, or you're really cynical, maybe you do follow Jesus and you're cynical, I want you to hear what I'm about to say through the lens of charity. But I am not going to shy away from saying one of the big differences or one of the big perspectives that followers of Jesus have is we have the perspective that everything I have is not mine. It belongs to God. In fact, one time Jesus is on a hillside. He's talking to thousands of people. And the people are like us, right? They love stuff, and there's nothing wrong with stuff. And Jesus doesn't condemn them for stuff. But he does warn them, and he says, you need to be very, very careful that you don't spend your life chasing money and building up a bunch of resources for yourself, like just building up your own empire. Okay, that makes sense. He says, just be careful, because someday you're going to die, and your kids are going to be on the front lawn having some garage sale, and they're going to be selling everything you have for like 25 and 50 cents, and someone's going to try to knock it down from there. That's what your future looks like. And then Jesus, after saying that, he speaks in a very strong metaphor, which was very common in Jewish culture. They would speak in metaphors to make things understandable. One of the big metaphors in Jewish culture had to do with the eyes. A healthy eye meant the person was generous. They saw life a certain way. They held their resources loosely. And then the unhealthy eye were people who kind of were stingy or were just afraid that if they were to ever give anything, that their world would fall apart. And so you had healthy eyes and unhealthy eyes. And here's how Jesus approaches this issue. He says, your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. Jesus says our willingness to be generous or not generous affects our perspective on life. To have an unhealthy eye means I go through life and I just hold things loose. I think everybody wants to take from me. And if I were to help someone in a time of need, I'm going to be without. It's my life's going to be less because of it, and I just can't get there. That would be an unhealthy eye. In fact, in some translations say the evil eye. To have a healthy eye means I go through life with the perspective that I have been so blessed by God that of course I want to hold things loosely. Of course I want to be a blessing to others. And as I choose to be a blessing to others, I know God is going to continue to bless me in return. And so generosity starts by recognizing the blessings in my life. Generosity starts by recognizing the blessings in my life. And again, if you're not a church person, if you're like, I don't believe any of this God stuff, I'm begging you as an American, I'm begging you to try to open your eyes and see how incredibly blessed you are. Now, all of us have snacks of choice, right? That kryptonite, so to speak, that we just need to stay away from because we just know we're going to eat too much of it if it comes our way. For me, it is M&Ms, all right? Specifically, peanut M&Ms, all right? And so I do not keep these in the house, but with peanut M&Ms, you know this, they have the fun size, which ought to be called the size from the devil, right? This ought to be called lame M&Ms because there's nothing fun about it, right? And then we have the regular size, 1.74 ounces. And then, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have the party size, okay? Now, which of these bags, if I gave it to you, do you think would be the easiest to share from? The party size. Of course it would be. That's the easiest. That makes the most sense. That's most natural. And so you're going to find this really hard to believe, just like I find it hard to believe. Statistics and studies have shown the exact opposite is true. That the people we would look at in life and say they are poor, that's the label we would put on them. Statistically, they give a greater percentage and do it more freely than the people who have the most amount of resources, the people we would label rich. Over and over and over, study reveals that people who we think have nothing, percentage-wise, they give more of their income and are more free, hold it more freely than people who have the most resources. Just a little over 10 years ago, you might remember this, that Warren Buffett, the great billionaire, this is my uncle. At least I'm hoping he adopts me at some level. But he donated almost $30 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So tons of press about his generosity, which none of us can deny. That's crazy generous. That's a whole lot of money. And yet in one of the interviews, that I personally read about, I was reading this. He said this about his giving. He said, I know a lot of people think I'm incredibly generous and I've given a lot, and no doubt it's a lot of money. He says, but here's what I'm going to tell you, straight up. My giving has not affected my lifestyle one bit. He said, I still buy whatever I want to buy. I go to whatever movie I want to go to. I eat out at whatever restaurant I want to eat at. It has not affected my lifestyle one bit. And then he goes on to say, he says, the heroes of generosity, the people that I look at and admire, are the people who've had to adjust their lifestyle in order to be generous. The people who've had to cut things out in their life so that they can give to something. What does it even matter? Like, what difference does following Jesus make? I'm going to tell you right here. Historically, followers of Jesus have adjusted their lifestyle so they can have the money to be able to give towards something bigger than themselves. Just look throughout history. It is followers of Jesus who've led the way in building hospitals, in building schools. They've led the way in building inner city missions to help the homeless. They've led the way in helping build organizations that work with moms who have unplanned pregnancies. They've used their money throughout history to build churches, to build orphanages, to provide clean drinking water to communities in developing countries. And we see it every single time that there's some big tragedy in our world. It is often the followers of Jesus who rush in and are there first, and they usually have the most amount of money, and they give the most amount of their time to serve the community. One of the reasons that following Jesus matters is because followers of Jesus realize we have a generous God. He's been so generous to us, so we want to be generous to others. We have been blessed to be a blessing. Now, if being generous, specifically with money, doesn't come easy or natural to you, I don't want you to feel guilty or ashamed one bit. This is a process. Right? There are emotions every single one of us have to confront. We have to confront our cynicism. We have to confront our fears. We have to confront our insecurities. And so I get that it's a challenge. But here's the challenge I'm going to put out before every Christ follower at Great Lakes Church. Everyone who says, this is my church. I'm going to ask you to take one step forward in the area of giving. Now again, you're not a follower of Jesus. Take a step forward in the area of giving, but do it with charity. You say, this is my church, but I don't trust y'all. You're all crazy around here. Then give to another church. But take a step forward in this area. And I'll just make this easy. I'm going to just break it up into two different groups, because I think if I were just to say what I want to say, it's going to be over some people's heads, and then other people are going to feel, I don't want any guilt, no shame. So let me just speak to two groups of people. I want to speak to half of our church, 50%. 50% of our church gives $0 throughout the year, nothing. And that's nothing to be ashamed of, because it's a process. It's scary. It's like taking that step forward. It's like, man, I'm sweating. I don't know if I can do it. But listen to me. You can do this. And I assure you, I don't make a lot of promises, but I will promise you this. If you are willing to take one step forward in your giving, God will come by your side, and you will sense that, hey, He is with me in this process. In fact, the one area that we read about in the Bible over and over and over that God attaches a promise to what He asks us to do, it's in the area of giving. He says, I will bless you. I will take care of you. And that doesn't mean He's going to open up heaven and we're going to have millions of dollars and it's going to be like some parade. It's not going to be like that. But He's saying, I will take care of you. And what He's doing is addressing our fears. I remember years ago talking to my parents and asking them, because they were some of the most generous, still are some of the most generous people I know. I said, how did you start your journey of giving? And my dad said, well, I would read the Bible and see these different promises of God taking care of us. And I had 7 kids at home, and I'm working in a factory. And I just made this decision. I'm going to take a step out, and I'm going to begin to give generously back to God. He said, I'm going to give a percentage of my income back to God. And he says, and then I figured, if I started going into poverty, if my life started falling apart, I'd just stop. And he said, but that didn't happen. It's because God comes alongside of us. It's like this girl, Rhonda Whitney from Colorado. I don't know if you saw this on the news. She was singing in a talent show, and about a minute into her singing, she gets stage fright, and she forgets the words. And so there's this long awkwardness of just her kind of standing there and kind of, I don't have time to show you the whole video, but I want to show you a little bit. I already cut out some of the awkwardness. I want to show you a little bit of that awkwardness, and then I want to show you what her mama does to help her. Check this out. I love that. Mama says, my girl forgot her words, so I'm going to help her. I'm telling you, this is what God does with us. He sees how nervous, he sees how timid we are. And he says, I'm telling you, take a step forward, and I will take care of you. And here's why I say this with such confidence. Because in my entire life, I mean this sincerely, I have never run into one person who says, my life sucks because I started giving to God. My life has fallen apart. I'm living in poverty because I've given to God. No, I hear it over and over and over. God just continues to bless me. Proverbs chapter 11, we read this. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. I think if we wrote that, we'd say, well, the generous will go without. Those who refresh others, man, they're going to be worse off in life. But God says the opposite is true. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. And again, I know this is true because of what I've seen. In fact, I'm just going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at sometimes some of the things pastors talk about. Here's what we know. In fact, when we went into a campaign a couple years ago called This Is Our Moment, we were going to move forward in buying property and doing some things. Here's what we knew, and it proved to be true. We knew this from before we even started, that the people who already are giving generously, your top 20, 25%. And in this church, the top 20% carries 80% of the financial obligations. But here's what we knew. When we went in that campaign, those 20% would be by far the most generous and the most giving in that campaign as well. So not only were they already carrying 80%, they were going to be, why? Because they feel guilty? Nope. It's because they know this works. They've seen it in their life. So I'm saying, if you're in this group that you don't give, or maybe you just give on occasion, take this step forward and say, I'm going to begin to give regularly. Then, for the other 50%, you say, I already give regularly. All right, so for first group, it's just start giving. That's it. It's pretty simple. Start giving. All right? I got a little lost in my notes. When we give, we become more like Jesus. And the reason we become more like Jesus is because everywhere Jesus went, he had a reputation for being open-handed. Never do you see Jesus being stingy. Never do you see Jesus holding back from people. He just lived life open-handed. Proverbs 21, the godly love to give. It's a cure to materialism. It guards my heart from putting too much emphasis on stuff. It increases my happiness. And here's ultimately what it does. It says, I no longer control this because I'm giving it to God. Right? I don't get to say, ABC, this is where it has to go. No, I'm giving it to God. And to say give it to God is almost a misleading statement because we're actually returning it to God. He gave it to us first. But the reason we say give to God is because the local church is the hands and feet of Jesus in our community and in our world. I say this every time that I'll talk anything about money. I'll say, if you do not think we're doing a good job at Great Lakes Church of being the hands and feet of Jesus in our community, you need to stop giving altogether. Like, if you don't see how we're trying to bless the world and bless our community, you need to stop giving. Give somewhere else. Because that ultimately is what we're supposed to be doing. Okay, so to the first group, I would say just start giving. All right, to the second group, and I'll make this very quick, stretch your giving. Don't ever be stale and installed in your giving, just saying, okay, I've just kind of given this amount, and I'll give this on occasion, or I'll give this regularly, this amount. No, find a way to stretch yourself in your giving. We do that 3 ways. The first way is we determine, all right, I'm going to be a priority giver. Every time I get paid, the very first thing I do is I write a check to God because I'm growing in this area. And then after you develop that habit, we become a percentage giver. We say, I'm giving X percent back to God. And the reason percentage is a big deal is because whenever I get a bonus, whenever I get a raise, it's already attached to my giving. And then finally, progressive giving. It's saying, man, I've developed this habit of being a percentage giver, but in certain seasons, I stretch myself. I stretch myself. Now, in Jewish history, percentage meant 10%. It's crazy. And I know as Americans, we think that's so difficult. I started that habit at 10% 15 years old. And it wasn't that hard. I worked at McDonald's, and I was like, okay, my paycheck is $40. I'll give $4 to God. You know? But as I've grown, I've just built that into my life. You're saying you want to stretch yourself? What percentage could you build into your life? So why does following Jesus matter? It matters because over time we become more like Jesus and we reflect him to our world. That's why we ought to be the most hope-filled people of the world. It's why we ought to be the most forgiving, the most accepting, and the most generous people on the planet. And the Apostle Paul didn't shy away from it. He wrote a letter to a young pastor named Timothy, and he says, teach those who are rich in this world. Boom! It's all of us. Right? We're in the top 5% of the world's wealthiest people. Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. It's his gift to us. Tell them to use their money to do good. So I'm going to say, use your money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. Now let me just wrap up just quickly with this. Why does giving to a church matter? I suppose, you go to Wikipedia, they're doing their fundraiser, got to keep it going, right? And you've got NPR, and you've got different things that you can point to that you say, hey, they need money to keep going. Yeah, churches need money to keep our bills and all that stuff. But way more than any of that, it's about being a place where when couples in their marriage are falling apart, they have a place of hope. It's for when people say, man, I feel far from God, they have a place to go. And know it's a safe place to ask questions. It's a place where you can be assured that we're putting an anchor in the souls of our children and our students so they don't drift too far in life. It's a place when people are struggling that we can just be here and offer hope. That's why giving to a local church matters. And it does something in you and it does something in me. Yes, we can give individually, but there's something that happens when we come together, right? When we're a team on this. It's like March Madness. Our whole staff filled out different forms, and I absolutely lost. I was in last place with our staff, ridiculous. But in March Madness, if you follow that, and they've got teams like Loyola that nobody thought was going to go that far. But they went way farther than anyone expected because they worked together. And when we give, not just individually, but when we give to the local church, we're working together to move the mission forward. So Heavenly Father, help us to see and to have our eyes open to how generous you are to us. And then God, do this work in our heart where we can learn to be generous to others. In Jesus' name, amen.